She was only 7 when the world went quiet. Not because she couldn't hear, but because she stopped speaking. It happened on a rainy evening. Her parents had been arguing for weeks, voices rising like thunder. She stood in the corner of the room clutching her doll, watching the people she loved most tear each other apart with words. Then, one night, the shouting stopped, replaced by silence. Her father left, and her mother's eyes were full of tears she never explained. The little girl, whose name was Ava, didn't understand everything, but she understood pain, and pain taught her to be silent. The next morning, when her mother spoke to her, she didn't reply. At first, everyone thought it was shock. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Ava had chosen silence as her only language. At school, children whispered. Some made fun of her. Some pitied her. Teachers tried everything: therapy, encouragement, patience. But Ava didn't speak a single word. She only smiled sometimes, faintly, like someone trying to remember what happiness once felt like. Her silence became her world. Books became her escape. She read stories of heroes who fought dragons and explorers who crossed oceans. She filled her notebooks with drawings of things she could never say out loud. While others talked, she listened. Really listened to every word, every emotion, every tone. 10 years passed. Ava was 17 now. Quiet, withdrawn, but not broken. Her eyes told stories no one else could read. People called her the silent girl, and she didn't mind, because silence, in her world, felt safer than words. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. One afternoon, in her small town, the local community center caught fire. Smoke filled the air and chaos erupted. Ava was walking nearby when she heard the screams, faint, muffled, like echoes in her chest. People were running, shouting for help. And then she saw her, a little girl, maybe 6 years old, standing by the window, trapped. Ava froze. Her heart pounded. For the first time in years, she felt the same fear she once had as a child. Helpless, afraid, silent. But then, something inside her changed. It was as if the silence that had protected her for 10 years cracked open. She ran toward the building without thinking. Smoke burned her lungs, but she pushed through. When she reached the window, she saw the terrified girl crying for her mother. Ava tried to pull her out, but the child was stuck. And then, without realizing it, the words burst out of her mouth. "Help! Somebody help me!" The sound of her own voice shocked her. It was rough, trembling but powerful, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. Within seconds, others ran over. Together they broke the window and pulled the little girl to safety. When it was all over, Ava sat on the ground coughing, tears streaming down her face. People surrounded her, thanking her, calling her brave. But all she could think about was the sound. The sound of her voice, something she thought she had lost forever. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, listening to the world outside. The wind, the distant cars, the hum of life. And she whispered to herself, quietly at first, then louder. Simple words. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm not afraid anymore. It felt strange. It felt new. But it also felt right. She realized she hadn't lost her voice. She had buried it under years of fear. And now she was ready to let it breathe again. The next morning, Ava did something she had never done before. She walked to her school, stood in front of her classmates, and spoke. Everyone turned in disbelief. Her voice was soft but steady. She said, "I want to tell you a story." And she told them everything. The pain, the silence, the fear, the fire. The little girl, and the moment she found herself again. When she finished, there was silence in the room. Not the kind she once feared, but the kind that meant people were listening. And then applause. Not for the story, but for her courage to speak. That day changed everything. Ava started talking again, slowly, cautiously, but every word was a victory. She began helping others who had lost their voices in different ways. Kids who were bullied, people dealing with trauma, those who felt invisible. She listened to them like no one else could, because she understood what silence felt like. Years later, Ava stood on a stage in front of thousands of people. She had become a motivational speaker. The woman who didn't speak for 10 years now inspired others to find their own voices. As she looked at the audience, she smiled and said, "For 10 years, I lived in silence. I thought speaking again would make me weak, but I was wrong. Silence was never my protection. It was my prison. And when I spoke that day, I didn't just save a little girl. I saved myself." The crowd erupted in applause. People cried. People smiled, because they saw themselves in her story. Ava continued, "If you've been silent, if you've buried your pain, your dreams, your truth, I want you to know something. Your voice matters. Even if it shakes, even if it's small, even if no one listens at first. Keep speaking, because someone out there needs to hear you. And maybe you need to hear yourself." She paused, took a deep breath, and smiled softly. "For years, I thought silence was strength. But now I know strength is speaking, even when your voice trembles." The audience stood up, clapping, cheering, shouting her name. And in that moment, the girl who didn't speak for 10 years became the voice for thousands who couldn't speak their truth. Later, when the event ended, Ava walked backstage. She looked in the mirror, tears in her eyes, and she whispered the same words she said years ago. "I'm here." Only this time, she wasn't reminding herself. She was declaring it to the world. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can ever do is to speak. Not to prove anything, not to be heard, but to be free. And that's how the girl who didn't speak for 10 years became the woman whose voice changed lives forever.